Hello and welcome to the Eradicators everyone. I'm your host for today, Renato. And in this video, we're going to talk about what is perhaps one of the most underrated franchises in terms of historical games. And that franchise is Company of Heroes. Company of Heroes is a series of games developed by the Relic Entertainment Studio based in Vancouver, Canada, which is the studio that is currently developing the upcoming Age of Empires 4, and for those of you who may not be familiar with the reference behind the game's title, I felt like reminding the fact that it is a nice wink to the HBO miniseries Band of Brothers. As in the series, when asked by his grandson whether he was a hero in World War II, the old-timer answers, "No, but I served in a company of heroes," which is really a cool reference. Back to the game now. The first thing that I would like to mention is that back in the days, its revolutionary aspect lied in the fact that it was the first World War II 3D RTS, which I thought was worth mentioning. For the creation of Company of Heroes, Relic used an engine developed to release Dawn of War, a Warhammer 40k themed 3D RTS game in 2004. The game allows you to play either US forces or the Wehrmacht forces. To make each game feel different, gameplay evolves around a doctrine mechanism which adds a lot of diversity in the strategies you may use to win. Be it paratroopers, mechanized infantry, blitzkrieg, or elite panzers, just to give you a few examples. The game was awarded numerous Game of the Year titles in 2006 from PC Gamer, GameSpy, GameSpot, among others, and received a 93 out of 100 score on Metacritic, which obviously speaks volumes. But enough with the facts, let's talk gameplay now. And the game uses the now renowned Essence engine, which was the first RTS engine to propose detailed faces with facial animations, as well as dynamic lightnings and shadows. Hence the capacity given to players to zoom in the battlefield like they are lying into cover to avoid enemy fire, and glance at their brother in arms in the eyes. The other key feature of the engine that makes the game incredible and has already seen in Dawn of War is that unit management is squad based. What I mean by that is that rather than having to select soldiers one by one, you manage a whole unit in one click and you can refill it in case of losses. However, this is true only for infantry and artillery pieces, and you must manage individually your trucks and armored vehicles. It may look bulky at the beginning, but in reality, it gives the commander awesome cover-taking options sorted by light, middle, and heavy units according to how well they are protected from enemy sight and thus fire. It also makes decision-taking and orders much faster, which adds a whole bunch of adrenaline to the game. Company of Heroes 1 was rather balanced in terms of units and each of the two factions' ability to actually win a multiplayer game. The single-player mode was memorable and designed as a remake of your favorite World War II motion pictures. Later on, several expansion packs were added to give the players both new and single-player campaigns, and new multiplayer faction and launched opposing fronts, which added the British Army and the Panzer Elite. The British addition to the game is interesting because it focused on rock-solid defense and bold counterattacks, more heavily armed enemy units backed by the Air Force, which is one possible although expeditionary narrative outline for the British engagement in the conflict, since they had to resist on their own soil before launching a counterattack, but we appreciate the almost historical touch here. The second patch, Tales of Valor, has a new single-player campaign that covered 3 real historical episodes of the Battle of Normandy, and it was such a treat to the community, which is in its majority made of history fans and amateurs. On a one-side note, there was, following this, a stand-alone sequel under the form of a free massively multiplayer online real-time strategy game, also released by Relic Entertainment and published by THQ. Unfortunately for the fans, this opus did not stand 1 year online because it had nothing to do with the original game. Chinese and Korean versions, however, were also released, but overall, this one did not have a long-lasting echo among players. Like most online free-to-play of that period, actually. Yes, I'm thinking about you, Age of Empires Online. The first game was, however, followed by a second official title. Company of Heroes 2, released in mid-2013 and using the same engine as Dawn of War 2, one might argue that the latest addition to the franchise brought some much needed fresh air to the genre for many reasons. First of all, it added a weather system which has had a critical influence on the player's troop and thus strategies. For example, if a blizzard has happening, your troops must stay in cover and lit fires, otherwise they would freeze to death. On top of that, the Air Force wouldn't take off under this kind of weather either. This aspect was pretty much of a hassle if you were relying on infantry, but could turn to your advantage if you had some armored vehicle to deploy on the battlefield. As interesting as this feature was, it has been removed pretty fast due to a massive backlash from the community. As far as factions are concerned, the great surprise in my opinion is the Soviet Army, which is the most prominent faction in this second title. The faction relies on a massive use of conscript infantrymen. Ideally, the player would hold as much as possible and then drop the tanks and specialist troops. These are specifically trained and designed to counter Wehrmacht units. One of the main particularities of the Soviets in the game is that they do not have any retreat points whatsoever, except with one doctrine, out of several dozens, and only 3 can be selected before you launch a game. That is a major difference compared to other factions that all have a retreat point that can be built or deployed on a map by non-doctrinal units so they don't have to rush through the whole map back to HQ. This is another historical aspect dealt with by the game, reminding us of the infamous Order 2027 that Stalin sent to his troop in 1942, de facto forbidding any retreat move from the whole Red Army. One doctrine even allows you to detach political commissars to boost troops' morale. The game is not 100% history accurate, of course, but it does deserve to be classified as realistic given all the factual details they added into the gameplay. This aspect of the game was unfortunately badly received by members of the community from Russia and ex-Soviet states. Company of Heroes 2 has way more factions and way more doctrines than the first opus. You can of course play US, British and Soviet for the Allies, or Wehrmacht Austere and Oberkommando West if you want to play the Axis. Each of them has between 8 to up to 21 commanders for the Soviets. It is precisely that great diversity of doctrines that the game has to offer that allows players to enjoy the game for potentially thousands of hours before being bored if that ever happens. Company of Heroes is therefore a franchise that is renewed for its replayability, which is what ensured its global success. And as I am writing those lines, the game is still played by 5,000 players on Steam, which is very impressive for an 8-year-old game. These are stats that many more recent games would love to boast. This is now the end of this video, so please let me know about your Company of Heroes 1 and 2 gameplay experience. Have you played those games, or have you been interested in those but never dared trying them out for yourself? Let me know in the comment section down below. Also, if you're a fan of the franchise, I would really also like to know what you expect from an eventual Company of Heroes 3.
This video is brought to you by the people who support this channel on Patreon and via the join button as well. Supporters of the channel get access to lots of cool perks such as access to my private Discord, your question answered in the show, you get to know when I'm going to play, and also you get to have a chance to influence the editorial line of the channel. Any help is appreciated, starts at just $1 a month. Thank you very much for watching. This is The Eradicator, and I'll see you guys later.